From the Detroit Free Press, it's Monday, October 12th. Here are today's top stories. Presented by Bush's Fresh Food Market. Calling all foodies, Bush's is hiring. Are you passionate about food, looking for growth, development, and excellent wages? Come grow with Bush's and apply online at bush's.com/join our team. That's Bush's, BUSCHS.com/join our team.
For the Detroit Free Press, I'm Kerry Jr. II. On October 3rd, the state Supreme Court ruled that Governor Whitmer needs legislative approval to enact state of emergency orders. This calls many of her previous orders into question. Free Press reporter Dave Boucher has more details. Dave, thank you so much for talking with me.
Sure, thanks for having me.
What prompted the Supreme Court to look into the Emergency Powers Act of 45?
So earlier in the year, several healthcare companies filed a federal lawsuit against the state pertaining to an executive order that was issued by the governor. It was related to banning any non-essential procedures at hospitals, kind of at the height of the pandemic scare. I would say this was in April and early spring when there was a lot of concern about hospitals needing more space. And so some of these healthcare providers filed this federal lawsuit, and a federal judge asked the state Supreme Court to weigh in because the judge determined that there were questions in state law. And that's what prompted the state Supreme Court to issue the most recent ruling. And
what did the state Supreme Court decide?
Overall, the Supreme Court determined essentially that the executive orders that the governor had issued were null and void. They determined in a 4-3 majority, so a divided ruling, that one law that the governor cited was unconstitutional. And that's because they said that the law gave the governor and the executive powers that should only reside with the legislature. So it's like a division of power question. The second law that the governor cited, the court said that she cited it appropriately, but they said in order for the governor to use that law and to issue executive orders, the legislature had to approve her use of these executive orders every 30 days. And she did not have that approval after April.
That means that all of the orders after that date in April that are null and void.
Right. That's the interpretation. The governor is arguing that her administration has 21 days after that ruling comes out before the ruling actually takes effect. And that's kind of like a court administrative move to see if they can have clarity. The Republicans and opponents would call it a delay tactic, and they're arguing that the court's decision is effective immediately. At the same time, the governor's administration, chiefly the state health department, is swiftly acting to issue orders and administrative actions that are being used to essentially replicate the issues at hand within the governor's executive orders.
And so moving forward, is the health department going to step in and say, hey, we need to reinstitute these orders because you no longer have the power, Governor Whitmer? Or are we going to see a bipartisan effort between the two parties?
Lawmakers have agreed to come back, and they are supposed to be taking up measures that in theory would replicate some of those orders that were in place. Now, it will be a surprise if those orders go as far as some of the governor's orders did because, as we're aware, Republicans in the legislature have thought for a long time that the governor's orders went too far in restricting businesses and in issuing additional mandates that some people found unconstitutional or unfair. Now, the governor and her supporters have noted that these orders help save lives, and they would point to statistics showing that the infection rate for the coronavirus and COVID-19 in Michigan has dropped somewhat substantially since these orders have gone into place. They would also argue that any sort of rolling back of orders and protections would result in increases in case rates that could threaten, the economy and schools and the overall health of the state.
What was Whitmer's overall response to the Supreme Court's ruling?
The governor isn't appealing the case. It's not really a case that you can appeal. But she called on voters to go to their polling booths or to cast absentee ballots and to vote for justices. The Michigan elects its Supreme Court justices. There are a couple who are on the ballot this year that Democrats are advocating for. The governor said that she respects the Supreme Court's decision, although she disagrees with it, and urges overall that irrespective of any decision, Michiganders should still wear masks, should still practice social distancing, and should still wash their hands and practice other hygiene practices that are just safe and helpful in the midst of a pandemic.
Free Press reporter Dave Boucher, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
On Friday, state health officials instituted an order that largely mirrors the mandates applied by Governor Whitmer. The order includes mask mandates and contact tracing efforts for businesses. The order runs through October 30th. Here are the latest coronavirus numbers. The state reported over 1,500 new cases of the coronavirus and 15 new deaths Saturday. 10 deaths were uncovered in a review of death certificates. Michigan averaged 1,020 cases and 13 deaths over the last 7 days. In total, health officials have reported over 134,000 COVID-19 cases and nearly 6,900 deaths statewide.
For more stories from the Detroit Free Press, be sure to check out freep.com. That's FREEP.com. If you're a fan and want to support our quality local journalism, subscribe. Go to freep.com/special offer.